Now, our session is going to be a real improvisation because some of the things that Michael talked about I found really important and interesting, and I want to try to echo them and make use of them as we go along. And it'll be good. See, there's things that you're going to have to learn how to concentrate out of your awareness. We can do that, and by the end of today, you'll be able to do it. Probably with effort, but if you practice, it'll become second nature. The best example of that I ever had was teaching acting in a room with this art studio upstairs. And a couple of kids were playing a scene from Romeo and Juliet, and the rest of the class was watching. And the theater's designer and I were in the back of the room. And the kids were at the front of this platform stage, and then there was a kind of an inner below in the back there. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the scene, a giant waterfall came flying down out of the ceiling, splashed onto the floor, and everything. Nobody but the designer moved. And he was out the door and halfway up the steps before the last water had hit. But everybody else hung in there and watched the scene. And I thought, now that's good. Now we know what's important. So anyhow, we're going to work on that. We're going to work on that. We're going to approach that first by thinking hard about the concept of release. That is, learning that we don't achieve much of anything by effort and clenching and what we think of as hard work. You can see that, it's fun to watch that down at the gym, where you see somebody kind of lift a weight or push something, and every other muscle in their body will be clenched up. Now, you've got to wonder, what does that do for, moving the weight? It does nothing. In fact, it distracts and takes away. So we'll think about learning how to let things go. Let yourself release into whatever the task is. And here's how we're going to do that. We will. Well, I see there's not a problem here. One of the first things you have to say is lids down, phones away, all that kind of stuff, but I'm sure that that's not going to be a difficult. But what we'll do is I will give you a kind of mini lecture on the subject of what we're going to approach. And then we'll do a game, an exercise about that material. Then we'll talk around the circle. This is a big circle, so probably we won't get all the way around every time. But the idea is you're prepared to tell very briefly what you did in the exercise. Not what it meant to me, how it relates to my life, etc. What I did, period, in about a sentence or two, so that everybody gets an idea of what's going on in everybody else's mind. Then you will, when we finish doing that, there will be a time, you'll take 5 minutes to write down as much as you can in your book. Everybody has a pad of paper, and so you're going to write in your book what it is you just did. You're going to do that for 5 minutes, and I'm going to urge you to just blurt that out. Don't worry about being complete or being smart or anything. Just write whatever comes into your head as a result of what you just did. This is actually a serious takeaway from this session. If you can get up every morning and write that way, just as fast as you can for 5 minutes, you will notice that very shortly your writing, your actual work writing, will improve. What will happen is you get your brain out on the ends of your fingers, and you get used to writing things that you're not going to let anybody look at. When you write in your book, that's absolutely holy, and you keep it to yourself.
If you practice that kind of writing, is it important to do it by hand?
No. It's better to do it on the computer because it's faster. You can do more.
Not for me.
Well, do whatever's best.
Okay.
But what you're writing is, oh God, I don't know what the hell to write this morning. This is really terrible. Just look at those mistakes. This is just, but you know, the other day, what? And you just blurt, and you don't. If you can learn to do that, it's a question of release. You're releasing your inhibition at writing something stupid. If you can learn to do that, you can actually learn to get out onto the page what's in your heart. You'll never get that on the page if you stop and think, I wonder how that sentence should be going together. I wonder what will they think if I write that? And you're doomed. So anyway, this is practice for that. Part of each exercise, each game is going to be writing about it in this blurt fashion, really quickly, but for X number of minutes. Okay. So, content. We start. There are two kinds. I give a mini lecture. This is, and here it comes. First. First kind of release that we were going to practice is release of the body. Release is not relaxation. Release is preparation for anything that comes. The place where you can see this most attractively, I think, is watching the tennis matches. You watch the person getting ready to serve, or you watch the person getting ready to receive service. You see them, so the guys who are waiting to get the serve, they're kind of dancing on their toes, moving their body back and forth, so that it is completely ready. But if you'll notice, there is no sign of any stress anywhere. They're just ready. And the person who's serving, they do that thing with the ball and bounce it and whatnot. And then if they throw the ball up and get poised for that, if you look at them at that moment, you'll see how utterly placid their whole body is. And then blows up and the ball goes flying out. Another good place to see that is watch the pitcher in the baseball game. And a lot of them have it down to a ritual. Like, I was watching this guy in the Phillies the other night, and he was really wonderful. He was playing for Florida, and he had about a 5-move ritual, which he did before every pitch, and it involved standing, breathing out, that big whoosh. A lot of pitchers do that, and then he would very carefully lean forward. One arm would go back, the other arm kind of go forward, and he'd peer into there. And then when he came up out of that posture, it was again exactly the same, and you could see this thing. There was no tension anywhere. Well, you can imagine what would happen to a pitcher's arm if it was tense when he threw the ball. You see those pictures of the distortion. Well, that was tense. That would probably just break apart at the elbow, and his hand would come flying in at the batter, which might be kind of interesting. Anyway, it's not relaxation. You're not going to learn how to go to sleep nicely. You're going to learn how to become absolutely released without going to sleep. That's why we do this session before lunch. Okay, so I tell you what, let's do. We'll do this in a chair first, and then we'll do it out on the floor, and then we'll do it during various activities. So the first step is to take off shoes and to put everything that you don't need over against the wall in a place that's yours.
Do we need these?
Chair out into the space so that you're distributed throughout the space. not important. So yeah, just everybody just bring your chair and organize yourselves in a totally random way. So now, the first thing to do is to get yourself seated in a chair so that there's no effort required to hold you there. So get yourself as much of your legs into the chair as you can. Get your butt back into the chair. The tiny ones can fold your legs up because the legs won't hit the floor, and that's not good for this exercise. Put your feet flat on the floor. That's good. And you want to be sitting up as straight as you can, as tall as you can in the chair, but without, any large effort at that. I still remember kindergarten, doing marching and stuff, and when we were supposed to stand up straight, my idea was to go like this. And this is as straight as I can do. So anyway, don't do that. But think about your feet and get your whole foot onto the floor. And actually think about the floor for a minute, or you can. But think about the floor pushing up on your feet rather than your feet pushing down on the floor, just as a way of making it strange and interesting. And that's good. Good. So now continue thinking up your body. You got your legs into the chair, and the chair is supporting you in a good way. You're not slumped in it, and you can now put your attention on your midsection and try to be as tall as you can without making it, without stretching up or inflating or anything like that. Just be very tall. Finally, now think about your shoulders. Let those shoulders absolutely release. We carry a lot around in our shoulders. You'll notice that if you won't be able to stop noticing it. Watch people walk. Watch those shoulders. How many people? The shoulders are just, the line in the back also wants to be as long as possible. So you don't want to go like this. You don't want to go like this. You just want to get long. And think about your head. Think about your head, that 30-pound ball up on top of your neck. Think about how we spend our days leaning that 30 pounds over, just not even cantilever, it's just hanging out there. It isn't any wonder that we're leaning in any way. Make it as straight as possible. Now, most people have to lean, to think about their head going forward a little bit, not forward, but kind of forward and up. You don't want to be like this, because you want this line to be long, but you don't want this line to get short. So you're making your neck as long as possible, again, without strain or effort, but just awareness, just being fully aware. Now you can do whatever you like with your hands so that they're not just dangling, but they're resting on your legs or somewhere. It'll be just fine, so that they are not a problem either. And you're sitting there completely released now. Just take a moment to sit. Take a survey of yourself. Put your attention on your feet, on your thighs, on your back, on your shoulders, on your hands. Just be easy. Keep going, running your mind around your body like that, observing, changing when necessary, thinking about, can I get my neck a little bit longer? Let me try that. Can I settle into this chair better? Again, it's a good idea to think about the chair pushing you rather than you slumping into the chair. Is my neck long? Yeah. My neck long in front? Is it long in back? My shoulders released? Not a bad idea to run your shoulders up over your ears and then let them drop. Yeah, good. Notice how difficult it is to let them drop. It's funny, when you're standing up, I might come behind you and I'll pick up your shoulders, and the first thing you'll notice is that you don't want me to do that. So you have to consciously say, okay, I'm going to let it do it. And when I do it, I push them up, and then I let go, and they stay up there. So you're going to try to help me. Anyway, just be thinking about those shoulders. Let them go. Release. That's good. Okay. Now, just be there. Your mind is running around, but your body is released. Good. Head. A little bit forward. Up. You want your chin up in the air. Yeah. Excellent. Very good. All right, so you're released in your chair. During the day, not a bad idea every now and again, just to take a minute and put yourself into the chair like this and just let your body flow. Then you can go back to your clenched up work posture. All right, so let's do this standing up now. So everybody up, push the chairs off to the side so we have space to be in the middle. And come out into the room in random, find yourself a place, and you've got a little bit of room around you so that if you were to wave your arms, you wouldn't smack into anybody. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Now we'll do the same thing, talk ourselves through. First of all, put your feet on the floor and put them right under your shoulders. Almost nobody does it the first time. Where are your shoulders relative to the rest of you? And see if you can do that. It's interesting that I don't see it so much in this group, but oftentimes you see the guys, they're all standing kind of like this. Their shoulders are a good bit broader, and the girls are all kind of standing like this. They're being cautious and careful. You want to be standing so that you are completely balanced, and if you want to move, you don't have to lurch to move. If you're standing like this, you're pretty much stuck. There's not much you can do. You don't go see any tennis players standing like this. If you're standing like this, you're also kind of stuck because, well, I could tip you over if I walk by. So you want to be planted solidly, and that means feet right under your shoulders. Now put your attention down on those feet and feel as much of the floor as you possibly can. Get as much of your foot onto the floor as possible. Now, you can't cram it down there, but you can release it so that as much of the foot is there as possible. And try to think your way into the pressure of your foot on the floor. Get it equal so that your whole foot is doing the standing. Got that? And again, it's a good idea to think of the floor pushing up on your feet. Or another idea is to think of, instead of standing down into your footprints, stand up out of them. But the whole idea is that they're released, okay? Now, put your attention up on your knees and your upper legs and move around so that you find the place where your legs can be that requires the least effort for you to maintain standing up. One way to work on that is to let go of the big thigh muscles and see at what point you tip over. There'll be a point, and you catch it, but see how little you can use. A lot of times we use a lot of muscles to do things that we really don't need to do, and this is one of them. Lots of us are very tensed up in here, and you'll notice that when, what's that, we used to give each other horse bites, so-called. Why is that so effective? Because that muscle is always tense. and it is in distress all the time. You go and you grab that on somebody and they'll just go through the ceiling, as you probably remember if you were a roughhouse kid. All right, so you're working your way up and you're putting your attention on your knees so that you're standing balanced on your knees rather than clenched on your knees. And now think up to your middle of your body. Think about those big muscles in your butt, the glutes. It's a good idea to kind of clench them just a little bit. Drive your pelvis forward to put it a little bit straighter. It's oftentimes we're like this, right? So drive it forward a little bit. Now, when you've done that, let's see if you can release the butt muscles and pick up the stress in the lower abdomen. You've got big muscles there. Oftentimes we don't use them. We use the butt muscles to do this work, and that's, you get sore backs on it. So anyway, there you are. And you're getting your hips planted right over your knees, which are planted right over your ankles, which are planted right over your feet. Perfectly straight. You come on up. Think about your upper body and your shoulders. And again, let those shoulders release. Go ahead and do that. Let them drop. See how yeah, good. You can make them really fall. Your idea is that your arms want to be as long as possible without any strain. A good thing to do there is to let your fingers straighten out just a little bit. Not much. You don't want to like this. But our hands naturally curl just a little. And if you will just kind of open them up just a tiny bit, then that gives you the impression that your arms are longer and you're more released. And your shoulders are released. And now your head, you think about your head floating up off your neck. Absolutely straight. You feel your, check on it. That's the thing. You lean over and then bring it up straight. Lean back and then bring it up straight. Lean forward. Bring it up straight. That's good. Okay, so now here you are standing. No pressure anywhere. Totally released. But you're not falling over. You're not relaxed. And you're not falling asleep. Okay? All right. Now, it's going to be a little bit crowded, but let's start walking. And kind of form a circle that takes up as much of the room as possible. Just walk. And at first, of course, you'll be walking like zombies. I think that's what we do on our scientific walk. But second, work your way toward as natural and easy a gait as you can manage. As unzombie-like as you can manage. You can look around and see the other people and watch how zombie they are. Make the circle as big as possible. We're really tight here. Let's speed up just a little bit. So that, but as you walk, see if you can walk, especially with your upper body. Let your upper body be released while you walk, and let it help. What happens when we do this walking exercise? Everybody walks like this. But see if you can let your body release. Your head wants to float up off your neck. And you want to, okay, let's make two. If you need to walk a little faster, walk on the inside. Yeah. Because you're walking too slow. That's good. Yeah. Now you're cooking. And let your arms help you and your shoulders help you. But don't just release. That's good. And your head floating up off your neck. So you're kind of monitoring everything, but you're not getting tight up there. Keep going. A little bit fast. Pass people if you want. So let your whole body do the work. And at the same time, you're making, you're taking inventory. That's a good idea. Then you sort of go off into that corner. You take an inventory to see where am I carrying the tension? And when I notice tension, can I release that tension while I'm walking? Now, as you go around during the day, you want to start watching how people walk. You'll become a very odious person in your own self for doing that, but it's really instructive to see how tight people are and how difficult it is for them to walk. Oh, a little faster. So that you're beginning to have to push a little bit. See if you can keep easy. Let your shoulders go. That's good. Very good. Yeah. Look straight ahead of you, not down at the floor. Yeah. Good.
What a beautiful day this is.
Yeah. And release any tension that you feel. Walk a little faster. Make the circle as big as possible. A little faster. Yeah. Beginning to get a little tight, but let your arms work. Be sure that they're helping you. And a little faster. At your own pace, begin to speed up by increments. Just test your body. What happens to me when I'm walking this new level of quickness? And then when you get comfortable with that, move up to the next one. Good. A little bit faster. Well, let your upper body help you, not hold it so stiff. That's good. How are you? Okay. Good. You look like people, not like some. Good. Now a little faster. Let your arms help you when you go fast. And now for just a moment, walk as fast as ever you can. Just really tear. Don't run. Move your whole body. That's good. Just release everything. Walk fast, walk fast. Okay, pause for a minute. You notice how tight you get when you start trying to go fast? All of a sudden? Let's go back and do that some more. Start at a natural pace. Be sure you know, take account of yourself. I'm walking completely okay, not doing anything, and then now I'm going to up it 10%. And, uh-oh, I see. Yeah, got all tense up here. Release. Still doing 10%. Comfortable. Up another 10%, etc. And see how that works. Now, there's no canonical speed to this increase. You're working on it your own self. This is you paying attention to your body and then telling it what to do. All right? And what to do is to be easy. Release. Ready, go. Very ensemble-like now. Big progress. 8+. Wonderful. So wonderful. Go on. Every now and then, run your shoulders up here. Notice that they might yeah, good. This is looking good. Remember a movie called Full Metal Jacket? Really interesting watching those actors learn how to march. Just terrific. And, well, keep going, keep going. I'm talking at you. You have to multitask. You have to work on the assignment, but of course there's an exam. And you have to know everything that's so that's good. Now we're talking. But in the movie, these guys gradually got better and better at marching. And you can see what every talk about release. Those guys would absolutely not using anything they didn't need to, because they knew damn well they're going to be out there for a couple of hours. Okay, faster. You want to work up till you're walking as fast as ever you can. Good. Whole body's working now and it's released. It's really quite different from what it was. A little faster. Let your arms help you walk faster. When I was a kid, there were a great bunch of English movie comedies. And almost always in one of them there would be a walking race. A guy with in his underwear walking through town as fast as he could go. It was very, very funny. You all just keep going and get faster.
We used to have that in the Olympics,
Yeah.
not the underwear.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't bother about taking larger steps. Just take more of them. Quicker, quicker, quicker. Check your release. Make sure you're not tightening up anywhere. Good. All right, good. Slow down and stop. Find yourself a place on the floor where you can be comfortable. Lie down. Just stretch out. Flatten out. Oh. Yeah, can you guys come this way just a little bit? Give it a little bit more room. Oh, that's good. Okay. Y'all can make your way through all this, can't you? Lie flat, arms to your side, just released. This is a very unusual position, of course, because you have no pillow. And the surface is hard and unforgiving. But you're just going to, one thing at a time. And the thing you're going to do is clench up a set of muscles and then release them suddenly. And feel that sense and try to get a sense of what that means to your body. So we'll start with your toes, as far as they'll go, and release. And do it again. As far as they'll go, as hard as you can, as tight as they'll go, and release. And curl them up as tight as they'll go, and release. Push your heels into the floor as hard as you can, and release. Take note of what muscles you're using. Push your heels into the floor, tight as hard as you can, and release. Good. All right? Clench the big thigh muscles, your whatever they're called. Clench them up tight, 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 and release. Do it again. Clench them as tight as you can, and release. That's good. Now, push your heels into the floor again. Now this time using your whole leg, and release. Again, you're going to try to drive your butt up off the floor with your heels, and release. Good. Excellent. Okay. Clench your buttocks as hard as they'll go, and release. Again, clench them, and release. Good. Tighten your stomach muscles as tight as they'll go, and release. Again, tighten as tight as they'll go, and release. Pull your stomach in as far as it'll go, and release. Do it again. In as far as it'll go, get as skinny as possible, and release. Push your hands down into the floor as hard as you can, and let go. Move your hands up off the floor and tighten your biceps as tight as you can, and let go. Do that again, tight as you can, and let go. Push your arms down into the floor with your triceps as hard as you can, and let go. And again. Good, and let go. Bring your shoulders up over your ears, let go. And again, and let go. Open your mouth as wide as you can. Make as big a mouth as you possibly can, and let go. Prune up your lips to the tiniest amount you can, as hard as you can, and let go. And do it again, and let go. Put your chin, put your tongue out on your chin. Stick it out, clear down to your chin, and let go. Do it again. Stick your tongue out on your nose as far as you can, and let go. Open them up as wide as you can, and let go. Push your eyebrows together in a frown as far as you can, and let go. Put your eyebrows on top of your head, and let go. Put your eyes over onto one ear. Okay. Now, as possible, just do all of that at once. And let go. Again, all of that and let go. Now just release for a minute. All right. Very nice. Now, here's the exercise. I'd like you to, on your own, go through this muscle clenching thing. Go through the whole process as quickly as you can. Then get to your feet, get standing, go through that process as quickly as you can, getting totally released, and then wham, back down on the floor and totally released again. But be sure that you're systematic and careful. You want to be fast, but you don't want to be superficial. Okay? So first you go through the whole clenching setup, jump up, do it again, jump down, and release finally. And when you've done it, then fold your hands over your stomach, so I know you're done. Ready, set, go. Just pause for a moment. What you're doing is you're waiting for everybody to finish. But while you're waiting, you can just take a kind of inventory and run over the exercise in your mind so that you're clear about what you just did. Good. Very good. Now I'd like you to open up your mouth and make a noise. Make the smallest breathing out and interfering with your breath just a little bit. So it's very, very released. Doesn't sound like anything. Just work on that and you're exhaling for a few minutes, for a few seconds. Just make that noise. You want to open your mouth as wide as possible. Open your throat as wide as possible. And when it makes you giggle, which it might, attack the giggles with release, not with clenching. You try to stop yourself from giggling, it won't happen. If you open your throat and release, oh, let me hear some awe. I want to hear now. Just a little bit when you. And a little bit louder now. Give yourself the feeling that you are pushing the air out of you with your stomach rather than with your chest. You've got your hands down there. You can check to see that you're moving your stomach muscles rather than your chest muscles to get this air out. Big open mouth. Drop your chin clear down onto your chest if you can. A little bit louder. You're supporting this breath with your lower abdomen. You're opening your mouth as loud as you can, as wide as you can. That's good. Make a big O with your mouth and continue that O down into your throat. Way big round. Notice your attention level moving forward. The next part of the exercise. I don't like to open your mouth that big because it makes you look silly. I think it makes you look silly. In an opening mouth class, it doesn't look silly at all. It looks like you're doing the work. Big open mouth. More volume. Try different pitches now, but keep your throat open this big. Open up wide. Even good. Wider. With your voice together, all of you, and gradually began to come together, you would build a really beautiful song. And what's more, it's quite a remarkable thing, but okay, so let's get up, and one last thing of walking before we get into the talking around the circle. On your feet, walking around, get started walking, and as you begin to walk, open up your throat and make some noise. Very quietly at first. You're working on the physical thing, not on the sound that you make. Never mind about the sound. Nobody's listening. Nobody can distinguish you from them. That's good. It ought to make you yawn. If you open up your throat, that will make you yawn. Good. And while you're yawning, see if you can do this vocal thing. You are like that. You're walking a little faster, and as you walk faster, make more noise. Arm and chin. Let your nose go up in the air. Big, wide open. Everything in your body is completely released with full of energy. tension in your psyche rather than in your body. We'll do this as a transition. You all know about Monty Python, silly walk, the ministry of silly walks. Are we all right with that? Do we know that? Anybody doesn't know it? Okay, well, you'll know it in a few minutes. And we'll be able to do it. And what I'd like you to do now is to, you're all on your own. Everybody is completely focused on themselves, what they're doing. You are going to work on a silly walk. You're going to be applying for a grant, administrative silly walks. And you'll have to demonstrate your silly walk to the minister. And in the famous sketch, the minister, who is played by Brian Cleese, that's not silly. And then, of course, he gets up and does one of those rubber things. If you haven't seen it, anyway, now, if you don't know what that means, you will know in a moment, and you can emulate somebody who does. But everybody working alone, what the act is called public solitude. That is, here you are, there's people all around, but you're all alone. You're not paying attention to anything but the work that you're doing. So, make up a silly walk. Go. Your idea now is to use all of your body in its released state.
Do you have to use your feet?
Everything. Arms, legs, hair. And if it makes you laugh, good. Go ahead and laugh. That can be part of it.
Sorry.
All right. You want to use every bit of your body as much as you can. Good. Excellent. Make some noise now while you're sitting there. Very good. Hold it. That's a good signal. I'll clap when I need you to stop for a moment. When you're making this noise, don't forget about the noise exercise. You're working at the same time as you're making the silly walk, which requires you, doesn't it, to release your body pretty considerably. Don't let that tense up your throat. Don't let that turn you into a vocal sign. But that everything so that your silly walk drives out a huge noise. Ready, set, go. I use everything all the time. Good. Arms. Hold on. Next step, grab a partner. Just grab the first hand you see. You're holding hands. That suits you guys. All right? Okay, so we grabbed his hand. We have a trio.
Yes.
All right, you're holding hands.
You lead.
You're making a sidewalk together. Your noises are talking to each other. No words, just noise. But you're working together, you're collaborating to make a silly walk together with noise. Ready, set, go. Try to get together. That's excellent. You guys are making great strides. All right, let's grab a chair, get in a circle. About talking in the circle. We apply the rule of total attention. That is, and you're going to be working on this all day today, on focusing totally. But for now, what you're going to do is, when you speak, you make sure to create eye contact with the entire group, one person at a time. It doesn't have to be around the circle, it can be random, but make sure you've contacted everybody. That's when you're talking. You talk right to people. Listeners, don't let anybody see the top of your head or you gazing off somewhere into space. Your job is to be there listening. Eye contact all the time. Never not looking at the speaker. Okay? That's just mechanical. That's got nothing to do with listening. That's a support thing. When you're telling people something, they should be listening up. So they are. All right? Don't get me wrong. I know how difficult this is. It's not a simple matter. Well, simple, but it's certainly not easy. But you've got to work really hard on it. We only have, 3 hours or so to get it done. So you're really working on that. And you're really working on talking right to people. I think the talking to is a lot easier than the listening. But that's just me. Maybe I already know it all. Why should I listen to you? Or anyone else. But anyway, we got that? No gazing off into space, especially not when don't you hate it when people talk like that, when they talk to you and say, well, what I think is that this is, and probably you should do that. Get right at it. Right in the face.
So when you're trying to talk to a group of people, you can't be looking right at each one simultaneously, because there's some here and some there and some there.
Right, so you go one at a time. And again, you don't have to go around the circle, but you're always talking directly to or with somebody. You're not talking at the air. All right? Now, we'll just do this. Anybody who wants to say something will say it. We'll do it for a few minutes. Not everybody will get to talk. But when we conclude, those of you who didn't speak recognize that it's your job next time to start the game going, right? Okay. You talk about what I did. You don't talk about what it made me feel like or anything. What did you do? This is really important. It's important because you want to be free to have serious, deep feelings. And you want to be free to keep those private. This comes from acting. When I'm directing a show and I say to the actor, okay, so what did you do in that scene? I want the actor to be able to tell me what he was doing. But I don't want him to have to tell me the private, terrific material he was doing it with. Because I want him to be free to do it with that material. I don't want him to be fearful or having to trust me with his heart's desire. That makes sense? Alec Baldwin said it really perfectly one time in a TV interview. He said, well, he says, every part I played, no matter how silly, has taken me somewhere I really did not want to go. And if you look at actors, you can see the ones that are any good, the ones that really grab you, they're the ones who are thinking about something they are there in depth. They're not just making gestures. Whatever they're doing is being driven by something that's inside of them, and you don't want to know what that is. Because if you get to know, then it ruins that material. The guy can't use it. Okay, so that in mind, I mean, that's not going to be a real problem here, I think. But the idea is you remove yourself as the subject. remove your feelings and your responses, and just talk about what you did, what I did, and just give it a sentence or two so we can get a lot in. Go.
Well, I moved every muscle in a very, very organized way, and then released them, tried to do every one twice, because I sort of gave a rhythm to the experience, and I'm hoping some of them.
That's good. That's a very good report. Exactly the way you are. You don't stand up, but you speak up and you shut up. This is good. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm fairly certain that I definitely forgot to scrunch my eyebrows during the part where we were doing like the stand-up and then doing it all at once and then doing the stand-up and then doing the sit back down, and that's slightly bothering me. I don't know why. Oh,
Okay.
I'm not supposed to say.
Thank you. Good. All right.
Tried my best and I could not sit it down. It was just too awkward.
Okay. That's fine. That's absolutely the right thing to report. By the end of the day, probably that won't be true anymore. But to recognize, and for all of us to notice, we know about that. We know how hard that is, and nobody's going to look at you and say, oh. That's because everybody will hit the wall somewhere today. And if somebody doesn't, I may make it a point. And you've got to know, I can find the way. So your idea is to be up at that edge that you're describing. In a larger context, we make a point of talking about that a little bit. The edge, the place where you hit the wall, that's where the work gets done.
Yeah, I was copying people because I just couldn't come up with my own.
Just fine, just fine. Notice that when you're swimming, you swim laps 1 through 50. The training takes place on lap 51. But you don't get to jump to lap 51. You have to go through 1 through 50. So that's what we're doing, learning how to do the laps. All right, good, thank you.
I think when you say hit the wall, I mean hit the wall physically, literal, being very literal, mental, make somebody else hit the wall.
Yeah. Okay, good, thank you.
When we were walking fast, I almost hit the wall because I almost tripped over chairs about 3 times.
Okay, good.
When I was walking by myself, I was walking in circles, but in pairs you really couldn't do that, so it was more like a dance step. And I started doing that, and my partner quickly started imitating, and then he started snapping his fingers over his head, and I realized he wanted me to imitate him, so I started doing that. He smiled when I did that.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. Anything else?
I experienced Agile yoga.
Yeah. Well, you know, there really are about 7 good ideas, and that's it. It's all ramifications of those and variations on the form. So when you can make a connection like that, that's a good thing to do. All right, let's take 5 minutes to write in your book. Just write as fast as you